Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my my spoken English conversation presentations. I'm so excited to do this for you, and I think a very important conversation we need to talk about is how to make a question. It's something that a lot of people in my classes ignore. Well, I'll get to that in a second. Let me just introduce everything. This is fundamentally the two types of questions that we have. We have a yes-no question and we have a long answer question. Now, HV means helping verb and S means subject. MV means main verb. And in long answer question, we also have a question word at the beginning. So as you can see, the components of a yes-no question and a long answer question are very similar. The only difference is the question word. Let me show you. Also, I'm going to get a little bit more complicated as the different parts. For example, in the question word, we can also have a question phrase that can be longer. And every single question has a helping verb or a modal. And we also usually have a subject or a pronoun. Sometimes we use an adjective. I'll change that later. And we also can may or may not have a main verb. So let's talk more about each part. First, the main verb. As you can see, the main verb counts depending on the helping verb and the grammar. If you have a helping verbs on the left here, you've got corresponding main verbs on the right. I've talked about this in the past, so I'm going rather quickly. Also, in some conditions, we don't have really a main verb, but we do have a type of complement, maybe a noun phrase or an adjective or a prepositional phrase or some other type of complement. And there's a lot, so I'm not really worried so much about the first part of this question. I'm sorry, the last part of the question. I'm worried more about the first part. Is it a long answer question or is it a yes-no question next to the subject or a pronoun part of the question? And that is, of course, the pronouns like I, you, we, they, she, he, it. Or, where's my I, you, we, they, he, she, it, or actual nouns and noun phrases like my father. There's also a very special thing, what you have worked for. That is a noun phrase. If I'm wrong, I'd like to have somebody correct me because this is something else that I call a noun phrase, and it's very important later on in my lessons. The teacher, my sister, the door, the committee. We can say we don't agree, or we can say the committee doesn't agree. They, my friends. So in this part, we have different parts. We have the pronoun or a subject. Moving on, let's get to the helping verb. I've talked about helping verbs quite a bit in almost every single presentation. I think I have. I'm sure of it. And what that means is you have an affirmative set, am, is, are, was, were, do, does, did, and a negative set, aren't, isn't, wasn't, weren't. I'm not going to talk more about that later because I've already talked about it quite a bit. But as you can see, both yes-no questions and long answer questions have a helping verb or a modal. And they also usually have a subject, but not always. But they both have the same pattern. And then also there's another pattern. Well, I'll show you more variations on the pattern later. However, what I want to talk about now is the question word or question phrase. Where am I? Here we are. Some question words, as you probably know, who, what, where, when, why, when, which. But let's not forget how, an H word. And we have some phrases too, and how plays a big part. How long, how many, how much. And we also can do it with other WH question words like which type, what kind, what language, what time. Those are question phrases, and they go before the helping verb. Then we have some extended question phrases such as how many blue bugs with eyeglasses do you see? What different Chinese dialects do you speak? So we can put a very, very, very long phrase before our helping verb in a long answer question. Moving on, after we finish looking at the patterns, I want to talk about the differences between the yes-no question and the long answer question. Let's go back to our original layout here. I could just use a Q also. I don't really need to have a QW because there also could be a QP, question phrase. So this is a very simple layout. Let's talk about first the yes-no question, a helping verb, and then a subject, and maybe a main verb. Maybe I can also put parentheses around this because there's not always a main verb in yes. Who drives? Well, actually, that is the main verb. Never mind. Let's just keep going here. What I want to say about yes-no question is that a yes-no question offers information that the person answering the question can affirm or negate. So when I ask you a yes-no question, I give you information. For example, are you the teacher? Are you going now? These are yes-no questions, and you're just going to affirm, I am, or I'm not, or negate the question. And then when we talk about our long answer questions, what that does is we actually have a blank in the question with a word. We want to get the information. So here I said, are you a teacher? Here I might say, what are you? Or what do you do? And the answer is, I'm a teacher. So I'm giving you the information. Here, you must give me the information. Are you a teacher? Here, you have to say, what are you? So we have two different types of questions. Moving on, I just want to explain that intonation is important with questions. Statements usually go from the top to the bottom. I hear a lot of Taiwanese students try to make a very beautiful sounding sentence, but it doesn't really sound correct when spoken. I am the teacher you have been looking for. Okay, that's not how you would say that. A statement, it's I am the teacher you have been looking for. La 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 la. La 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 la. It just starts at the top. If you're not sure about intonation, follow this rule. If you're making a statement, make it fall. WH questions also fall. What are you looking for? Who are you going to come with? Now the yes-no question is rising. Are you going to come with Susan? Are you looking for me? So this is the big difference. And when we use this, I'll talk more about intonation for other forms. But let's go back to what is the difference between the fundamental two types of questions. No, I'm not talking about the difference. I already explained that. What I want to say is that this is not important. I'll remove this later on. Let's just talk about, because we have two types of questions, the way you respond to them are two different ways. A yes-no question or a long answer question, we have a different type of response. I'm going to talk about that later, but let's just talk about something else. We have actually 7 questions in English. We have 7 forms in English. And the number one, let me show you here, those 7 types of questions can fall into 2 categories, a yes-no type of question or a WH question. A long answer, sometimes we say WH, sometimes I say long answer. Short answer is a yes-no question. Long answer is a W question, or some people say WH. I say W question, but I guess that's not really correct. I've been mispronouncing it for years. And of course, I talked about the yes, no, and I talked about the WH question. I'm going to go into those more in a bit, but what I want to show you is the other 5 that can fall into the corner. Now, statements can be questions sometimes, and I'll show you how to deal with those. Either or, we have some on both sides, the false either or question and the real either or question. And the last is the tag question, which is really the same as a statement question with a tag on it. So with these types of questions, let's talk about them. First, I want to mention those are obvious, the yes-no question, the WH question. I'm going to talk about that second. And tag questions later, either or later. Statements, statement rising. This is very important because I teach in Taiwan, and most of my students, when they ask a question, they grab for the statement rising question. You're a teacher? Okay, that's not really a question. It's you're a teacher. It's a statement. But when we make it a yes-no question, we change the direction of the intonation. You're a teacher? Sometimes the students don't know about this, but they try and say, you're a teacher? Yeah, Taiwan's favorite way of asking a question is using a statement rising question. I want you to understand that sometimes it's correct, but if you do it every single time, it's not correct. You need to start making questions like regular yes-no questions. Here's some examples. You're married. You've got 3 kids. He's a soldier. Okay, those are statements. Oh, you're married. My brother's married. I'm going to give you some information about my kids. I've got 3. He's got 3 kids. He's a soldier. This is the same as a yes-no question when you make it rising. You're married. You've got 3 kids. He's a soldier. And the answer is I am or he does. Stop relying on this one way to make questions, please. Let's go back to yes, no, and WH. These two types of questions are very standard. The first one, as I mentioned, offers information, and the second kind offers a blank. This is it. Now, if you notice over on the right-hand side, we have the information that it offers. Do you speak? Okay, if I ask a question with a WH, it's here. I say, what language do you speak? But because I'm going with a yes-no question, I have to offer the information. Do you speak English? I do. Do you speak French? I don't. The next part is how to answer this question. Do you speak English? Did you get married? Are they voting for Donald? It's all rising intonation. How do you answer those questions? I talked about this in my first video. I want you to watch that video. I'm sorry, the third video. Oh, I'm going to redo all my videos. Who taught you to ignore how to answer this question? Do you have a job? Yes, I have a job. Okay, this is not a good way to answer this question. I'm going to remove this for later. I don't want to ask that question right now. But I do want to talk about this big mistake. This is the way a lot of Taiwanese students answer this question. Do you have a job? Yes, I have a job. You're repeating the information in my questions, so it's not very efficient. So when you answer this question, I want you to think about what you're doing. Are you a student? Yes, I am a student. Okay, it's really a poor way. Don't answer the question like that. Why? Because you're repeating each part. A student, a student. Are you a student? Yes, I am a student. Is this a conversation? No. Are you a student? I am. You don't need to repeat each part. Are you? So how do you do it? Don't answer like this. Are you a student? Yes, I am a student. This is frustrating for the native speakers, and it doesn't confirm that you understood my question. So how do you do it? Well, there's a lot of ways not to do it. Are you a student? No, I am not a student. That's no good. Do you have a job? Yes, I have. Well, this is correct in many parts of the world, but it repeats the main verb and confuses a conversation. You should say, do you have a job? I do. Focus on the helping verb in your answer. And let's get on with it. Don't always say yes or no. Use the two words that follow in the active listening. Help me understand, you understand. So, are you a student? I am. I'm not. It's a two-word rule. I want to emphasize two words, but not this time. I did it in the third short answer presentation. Here's some answers. Are you a teacher? I am. I'm not. Aren't you a teacher? I am. I'm not. Going on, here's a couple of practices to see if you know the two magic words to answer the question. Going on to long answer questions, as you can see, it's the same group as I showed you earlier, but now I removed, sometimes we still have got some compliments, but I removed the actual information because now we have the question word, which is like a blank. What language do you speak? Okay, the yes-no question is, do you speak English? But because I want to ask the question without giving the information in English, I use a question word. And how do we answer these questions? What do you teach? Don't repeat the subject and the verb. I teach. You can just say English. This is conversation. So don't repeat the subject and the verb, or it's going to be, of course, to emphasize you can do this. But why are you a teacher? Because I like helping people. If you say, I am a teacher because I like helping people, it's a little bit boring. Where do you work? I work at the airport. Okay, most people would not repeat the subject and the verb. Where do you work? At the airport. What kind of job does your father have? A government one. Where did you go in the U.S.? California and Texas. You don't need to say, where did you go in the U.S.? I went to California and Texas in the U.S. Are you going to repeat in the U.S.? No way. You don't need to repeat. You just need to give the information that this question word is asking for. Okay, I'm almost finished, but I want to talk about the other types of questions. So where are we next? Going on, this is the finished part of that. Okay, going to, so we talked about the yes, no, we talked about the WH. I talked about statement rising, but that's on the the yes-no side. On the long answer question side, we also use statements, but we take one word that we're looking for, the information we want, and we replace it with a question word. For example, you work where? You are married to who? We can even put it to. I'm supposed to do what? When? You can actually see that we rise the intonation on the part. Your name is what? Your what is David? Whose name is David? Okay, so your name is what? That means if I say, my name is blah, 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 you can repeat and say, I'm sorry, your name is what? Oh, I'm sorry, my name is David. And somebody who doesn't know what David means might not know it's a name. They might say, my name is David. And they say, what? Your what is David? My name is David. Oh, I got it. I'm clear now. And, of course, if I say about David, and I say, my name is David, I would say, whose name is David? And you would say, my name. Okay, anyways, I'm just being joking around. So now going on to tag questions, this is a very important type of yes-no question. Let's take a look at this. It's a tag question. It's a statement, you have a job. And then a tag, don't you? And it makes a question. And some people like to say, you have a job, don't you? In Taiwan, it's a favorite. And I want the Taiwanese to remember that this has a different meaning. If you say, you have a job, don't you? Your meaning is different. So we have two ways to say it. You have a job, don't you? You have a job, don't you? And if you say, you have a job, don't you? That means that the speaker saying this believes that the statement is true. But if you say, you have a job, don't you? Then the speaker's not sure if the statement is true. So my point is that usually you probably already believe the statement is true. And so we have this format. You have a job, don't you? Make sure you don't always rise. It's not correct most of the time. Let's see, what else is it? So this is the first one. You aren't married, are you? I'm not sure if you're married. I don't have the data. I'm not sure if the statement is true. The speaker who says this doesn't have any data or information, and I'm asking you for the information. But in this case, you aren't married, are you? I believe this statement is true. I'm trying to confirm something that I already believe is true. And the speaker could be actually accusing the listener of not being married. You aren't married, are you? So it's an accusation. Okay, so that's the tag question. There's another type of question, and we answer it the same way we answer a yes-no question. Okay, the next one is the either-or collection. Now this is, either-or usually is a long answer question type looking for information, but we have two choices. Okay, do you want A or B? And your answer is, I want A, or A, please. But sometimes we have a false either or. Let me show you some example here. Sometimes there are two types of responses you have to be careful of. Let's look at this. Do you want tea or coffee? If you say, yes, I do, that's incorrect. Or no, I don't, that's incorrect. You have to choose tea, please, or neither, thanks, or coffee, thanks. Next one down, if we look at it, we can just go straight up. Do you want tea or coffee? And if you say, yes, I do, it sounds okay if I'm rising. Do you want tea or coffee? I do. But then, of course, you want to focus on the answer, coffee, please. Those are both correct answers. Do you want cream or sugar? Now, here's where you, coffee or tea, you have to choose. Do I want the tea or do I want the coffee? But if I say, do you want cream or sugar? Well, you might want both, right? So be careful. Do you want cream or sugar? Yes, I do. No, that's not correct. Of course, yeah, you do. If you say cream, please, or both, please, or neither, thanks, that answers those questions. And another example, do you want tea or coffee? Yes, I do. So if you say, yes, I do, it's going to sound terrible. So be careful. If somebody says, do you want tea or coffee? You can say, yeah, I do. I'll take the tea. This is the best choice. Be safe and just say, yes, I'll have coffee, or yes, I'll have tea, or neither thanks, or no thanks. There's a lot of ways to answer those questions. And that is the end of my question presentation. 20 minutes. Here's a review. All questions use a helping verb. Is that true? Why is that true? Do you live here? Where do you live? Does he hit his wife? Why does he hit his wife? Have you been lucky? How have you been so lucky? So always understand the helping verb grammar and understand that there's 7 types of questions that could fall into 2 categories. Also remember there's intonation. You should pay attention to the intonation. Talking about tag questions, be careful. And that's it. Secrets of Spoken English and conversational questions. We're all finished. I hope you enjoyed this presentation of 20 minutes and 15 seconds. Have a great day.